Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us here. I think it's a great topic to discuss about because growth is something which all of us think about the most and also struggle with in terms of what targets to set, how to grow, and specifically in a fast changing environment. It's all the more relevant. And I think we have a very good spread of speakers today, ranging from Anshul, who is spearheading consulting practice for Accenture since quite a bit. So he can talk about one end of the spectrum to Rakesh, who has been leading FCM from global business transformation perspective. And then we have entrepreneurs, Manish and Ankush, who are creating benchmarks in their respective businesses in B2B travel and in the smart city, smart bus segment. So we are looking to provide you some meaningful, actionable insights over the next 35 minutes. Before we get into tech-based questions, so I'll ask Ankush a very fundamental question, that when we think of growth, how does TPO and Nichavan Group think about it? As in, how do we set our benchmarks? How do you think about growth as an entrepreneur?
I think now in my mid-40s, and the guys who are especially younger to me, I think India is probably the best positioned ever when it comes to outbound travel / inbound aviation, whatever you might call it. I think, especially, no offense to China, but I think the China slowdown is helping India. Is growth a question? I don't think so. The question is, how can you grow faster in this growth? I think, to rephrase what you just said, Chirag, I think if anybody is not going to kill this and make his mark in this industry over the next decade, I think he's not doing the right job. I think if super position, everybody wants a piece of India, be it any hotel, tourism board, sightseeing, intercity, bus, rail, whatever you might say. I think it's amazing the position we are. And if you see 4 trillion yesterday, I was in Dubai the last 3 days. People who never looked at India still want to look at India. I mean, you feel the show when you're at a WTM, everybody wants to know where India is. It's unreal. So I think the growth is a huge opportunity, and with our population, with our economic growth, what's happening at the stock market, people talking about TCS, everything is being spoken, but everybody is full. So where is the business going? So I think growth is not the question. How can you grow faster in the growth is the question.
So I'll put a different perspective to it with respect to growth. So how do you decide how much to grow as a business? Because that is something which we as entrepreneurs and businessmen struggle with.
You want me to ask from my side or the industry?
How do you think as a person about it, your perspective?
I think the TAM is extremely large, and I think India is still on the runway for us to take off with 30, 25 million trips happening with 160 million passports. I think there's a lot of scope left from what we have even today. Obviously, as my own company, we want to be the leaders, optimize our share in India as we grow both domestically as well as internationally. But I think the space is so large that everybody in this room will have their own pie. The only difference would be who's more tech savvy, who's well equipped with funding, who's doing the right job, ethically when I say. I think it's going to be the winner in the medium and long term.
Okay. Rakesh, what's your perspective? Because FCM is already a global brand, and you focus on a different segment, which is corporate travel in India. So how do you look at growth within FCM?
So in our case, actually, so it's, of course, it's a wide organization, MNC setups and all, spread over 26 countries. So we need to decide exactly what we are moving and how we are moving. So we use a framework of course, we all know that playing to win setup. So A.G. Lafley's book. So we use that framework. We actually decide what is exactly we want to be there. What is our winning aspiration? It's been decided by each country, and then we add it to and reach out that number. And that's something which we all do regularly. And then we go down to right below the last level, which is the last team leader, who actually works on that number and looks at that for their own vision planning goal settings. So that's how we normally look at that. And again, I would say growth as a sales number is one side of it. Getting entrenched into the industry, that what is the number which you want to achieve is another number. How much do you want to be known by the customer is another number. So we really look at whether the customer will remember us. That's the number, that's the growth equally to us. So just after COVID, I think that's something we spend upon. We spend a lot on our marketing setups, and we decided to be absolutely the alternate right now. So alternate in the corporate travel setup. So that's, I would say, that's our strategy right now. That's how we reached out the number.
Okay. Anshul, you work with, you have the privilege of working with a lot of companies actually in your consulting practice, right? So by working with them, what is your sense that what tools or tech-led strategies are people adopting to grow their businesses?
I am a firm believer that technology shouldn't be for the sake of technology. It has to be transparent. It should never be visible, right? So tech-led strategies should be the strategies for business and not tech strategies, is my personal opinion, and I strongly believe in that. With that, I would say focus on experience, focus on ease of access and expansion of options available to the consumers to pick the right would be defining the strategies for technology as well. How do you want to leverage technology for some of these things? Based on a research that I read a few months back from one of the leading research publication companies, said in America, more than 70% of the millennials and Gen Zs want experiences that their family and friends have not had. Now, in China, that percentage goes up to 90%. Any guesses for what that percentage is going to be in India? I remember, mid-40s you said, Onida TV ad, if anyone remembers, neighbors envy, owners pride, right? So whatever that number is going to be. So unique experiences have to be delivered in order for any strategy to work, and it includes how you leverage technology to deliver those unique experiences. Now, ease of access. So a few years back, we worked on an engagement for an airline alliances, and if I want to travel from here to Munich via Frankfurt, I would book Air India from here to Frankfurt and their Lufthansa maybe to Munich on Air India website. And things have changed. This is long back, right? No offense to anyone. I would not be able to do additional service. I would not be able to buy additional services for the second leg of the journey, despite all belonging to the same alliance, which is a shame. It has changed. So those kind of platforms have led to ease of access. Look at the expansion of services. AirAsia is a prime example. They said we just don't sell airline tickets. They have a lot more on their super app that they created. Similarly, ClearTrip selling tickets on Flipkart and Amazon having a partnership with Make My Trip, right? So that's broadly what I would say. Technology delivering new business services, experience, ease of access in order to have the right expansion of business.
Manish, I would like to get your perspective as well on this, because you operate in a segment which is considered largely offline buses. So how are you bringing technology into that angle, and how are you growing your business?
Sure. So maybe I'll just take a minute to kind of introduce what we do. Not many people are familiar with what intercity smart buses. So we focus across in a long distance travel within the India traveler. If you look at it, our estimates kind of have about 40 million people make a long distance journey every single day in India. That's probably the population of many countries across the world. Now, among the 40 million people, trains and buses are the most predominant mode of travels which people take, and the flights and the private cars. Typically, so if you take the 90% of travel in India happens using buses on the road and the road across with the buses and trains, and remaining 10% kind of goes around with the flights or private taxis or private cars getting around. So our notion across was that we have a popular product which is in India which is using trains to travel, but it is limited in some sense. It has not coped up with the way the economy or the population has kind of grown. And government also has put up in their intent very clearly. We today are the biggest highway, we're laying down the fastest highway network across in the entire world. And government has seen it around saying that, the future of travel predominantly would be road-based. So towards that, when we see there's a lot gap on what kind of services are available on the trains and what kind of services are available or not available across on the buses. Trains always has, as I said, is a popular platform, but the buses people have considered buses as always as the second cousin to travel. If I don't get anything, then I'll probably sit in a bus and travel to make a long distance journey. So where we are focused at Intercity Smart Bus is if we can make buses at the same experience as trains. So for example, having safe boarding points, having, for example, one of a very popular feature for our buses is having a washroom inside the bus so that you can, if you're taking a long distance journey, that's there. The technology and those things around. So those are the kind of buses which we have launched around as part of the smart buses. So coming to your question across the, on the, using the technology, see, running a bus is a very kind of a unique business because that business doesn't happen in front of your eyes. You know, it's happened across on the road. You might be sitting across in an office and that business happens across on the road. And that traditionally has been a little bit of a dilemma for many bus operators across the country to scale up to the next level. Using that's where technology kind of helps across us in that part to scale up. So for example, you can now, using technology, you can have your own eyes inside the bus. You can have your ears inside the bus, so that that entire experience of how a customer experience, how the operation kind of goes around, comes across to that. And that is what we have done to kind of scale up over a period of time, to kind of add that. We are today able to add up buses very uniquely, rather than, you know, it being very operationally sensitive also from that.
Understood. Understood. And Rakesh, coming back to you, how does FCM look at, and how do you look at as a business leader into driving growth from tech aspect?
Yeah, so it's interesting when we say this, because we are actually people first company, and technology is something which is auguring how we can support our people to be able to service our customers. So when we look at all those aspects, we look at the data from that angle, what is the life cycle of the customer, how is that our person can actually be given more support from the technology setup, and the person is able to spend more and more time with the customer, talking to them, understanding their problem, and then solving the problem. So that's, I would say, largely set up for us. Over a period of time, we worked on various aspects. Of course, AI is something which you all speak about. So whether it's a mobile app, which can be augured through AI is reminding you, this is your time to leave home for your flight, or this is the time for you to be able to do your web check-in. Now, all those things, person is very tough for a person to be able to deliver it. Can we do it through technology? Can we make their life easy? That's what I would say we look at from the technology setup. In this world, of course, we have to change on the setups, and the people cost is much higher, and that's where it solves a problem for us, all of us, quite largely. That's I would say is large aspect for us.
Okay. Ankush, from you, I would like to understand one more aspect about growth. So when we look at international expansion, and because again you have done that, so what kind of opportunities and challenges you saw and faced from tech perspective and otherwise?
So I'll answer in two parts. So just for the audience benefit, we operate in about 100 countries today, employ almost 700 people who are not Indians, 42 nationalities. How it happened, it just happened. I think the focus was there. It just kept going, and we realized, we are almost literally operating in 120 countries officially by United Nations. I think the biggest challenge, and which I'll talk non-tech right now to begin with, is culture. As a company, we had to position ourselves very, very strongly as a non-Indian company, that we're a truly multinational. It took us years to build that kind of culture within India as well, to say, guys, when we're talking to our international colleagues, have to position today as a global company. I think culture is very, very unique, and you have to adopt that. So you have to actually become very localized in terms of serving your partners and your clients and your employees and so on and so forth. Second is compliances. You're entering a land which is absolutely unknown to you. Everybody has their own compliances, especially in Latin America, for example, Europe. GCC is pretty easy, but I think in these unique countries, compliance is something which we were very, very wary of. And yes, we have hired top consultants to help us out. And fortunately, things are doing pretty well in the last almost 12 years since we stepped outside India. Technology is uniform. I think as Indians, I think we are far ahead in the world when we're building tech, and I think it's very well adopted outside India, because I think what we are building as a country, not only just us as a company, I think is very, very different. People respect us in the tech world. The only difference is the way we trade is different. The look and book behavior is different. People buy more on credit cards, for example, in certain geographies. The conversion rates are much higher. The conversion rates are lower. Dealing with currencies, with so much volatility, whether it's Turkish lira, whether it's Brazilian, I think we have to be very, very cautious. We need to hedge, etc. So this is something a treasury needs to be very, very well defined in the company for us to manage a global expansion. And I think opportunity is, fortunately, our playbook is in emerging economies. So whether it's Brazil, Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines, I think these are the next growth engines apart from the US and European markets. Not that they're not growing, but I think the next economic wave in single digits, but double-digit travel growth, might happen in these emerging economies, which I think we realized this very early, and fortunately we are in the right position. AI, all these things, what we are talking, will obviously come uniformly. I think the industry behaves the same, but I think to see the compliances, the culture, and obviously certain risk, which you have to be very, very cautious about when you're differing in geographies. So it's a great journey, but it's fun.
Got it. Okay, so next question is around building brand loyalty, which is always a debatable topic, that whether digital platforms are transactional or can they help you build longer term engagement with the customers, right? So Anshul, from your experience again, you have worked with Indian clients, global clients, and across type of players. So what has your experience been? How do you help at Accenture in building brand loyalty, building retention using digital platforms?
Brand retention and loyalty is a very complicated subject for sure. Everyone understands or apparently understands that part, at least that it is complex. To start with, we conducted a research, and we do this quite often, 16 countries, 19 industries, 10,000 plus consumers. We call it the Consumer Pulse Survey, to understand various aspects of consumers' buying behavior. And when we try to decipher that to understand what builds brand loyalty or what are the top 3 things that consumers are really looking for, I'll give you 3 options, not in the order of priority, and let's see what the research told versus what is intuitive to us. The first is brand consistency. You always get what the brand promises, so living up to the brand promise. Second option is being comfortable, care, trust, reliability, right? So that's the second thing. Third thing is recognition. So you are being recognized, you are being, dealt with, personal care and so on and so forth. The obvious answer or the intuitive answer is brand recognition is the most important for customers to build or to be loyal to a brand. But research didn't tell us that. What it told was brand consistency is number 1. Then reliability is number 2, which is trust. And number 3 is recognition. So that's what is really kind of non-intuitive to us, and the companies which really work this in the sequence, in the sort of priority, really win the game. If I land up at a hotel booked through a particular website, through a company, and I just arrive at the hotel and open the app to find some services to order something or whatever I want to, and I see I have, say, landed up in Bangkok, and it gives me, do you want to go to Goa as an offer on the homepage. Why would that happen? It's not contextual, right? But that is happening today. You open the websites that you have on your, where you are, buying from, or the apps, very likely you will see standard canned offers, which is not right. That is not aligned to building brand affinity and loyalty. There are many ways. One example, another example I'll give is, which is more Gen Z and millennial type, which is the Roblox. So Changi Airport had the Changiverse launched. We worked with them to build the entire virtual immersive platform where you would be able to explore the entire airport, engage with the services at the airport much before you actually land up there. So you have built loyalty not just while the traveler is at your venue, but also when the traveler is not at your venue. So those are some ways in which this is happening.
Got it. Manish, I would want to understand your perspective as well on it, because I see Intercity has very good engagement of users on the web. So what's your experience been like, and what has worked for you as a brand?
See, for us, something, we are in the business of simplifying travel. So inherently, I'm sure all of you would have experienced it. Inherently, train travel, be it train travel in India or bus travel in India, has a lot of elements of chaos kind of built into it. And the way we look at it across is, if we can simplify from a point of view of the customer to simplify. So for example, you're taking a train, which platform number, kaun-sa coach position, kahan khada rahu, all these things. Or if you're taking a bus, am I standing at the right side, left side, where will be the bus stop, meri ticket confirm ho jayegi. All that inherent chaos is there across into the system. And what we have used it around is that if we can simplify those chaos to the users, if we are able to give them tracking ability, if we are able to kind of give them the information ability at the right time, at the right place, that inherently builds up that, that love for the brand, or the following across on the brand. And those are the strategies which we have used. We use a lot of data, we use a lot of prediction, we use a lot of tracking, which we give out information across to the consumers. And that's how they follow. And that's how and the best way to kind of deliver that information, again, is using the digital platform, using the apps.
Got it. Ankush, you want to add something to it?
So I'll break this into B2C and B2B, right? B2B, so first of all, there's no loyalty. Okay, let me put this way right now, okay? I think everything is driven by price and content. I'm sorry I'm being a little curt, but that's the fact. In a B2B, your cohort is far more superior because there's trust and relationship, as Anshul mentioned. But still, nobody dominates a monopolistic environment in any global travel market in a B2B OTA. Now come to B2C, it's all about content or the price, right? Large companies, which I don't want to name globally, are winning on content, not on loyalty. I think the only two companies who are non-travel who have cracked this loyalty, one is Marriott Bonvoy, and I think the Emirates Skyward. I think people swear by the loyalty there, but they're not tech-led companies, they're more hospitality and airline. But personally, if you ask me, to build that loyalty is going to be the next winner. The question is today, the question which you asked, I don't think there's anybody who has a loyalty. Apart in the travel, leisure space, corporate, absolutely there'll be loyalty, because not just tech, there is surveys, credit, etc., etc. But when it comes to hardcore searching on the site, for a leisure traveler, loyalty will still take some time.
Okay.
I think I'll agree with you. What Ankush is trying to add is, it's the customer intimacy which needs to be added to the tech side of it. And that's where Anshul's point comes in, that how we can use the data to actually give the right offer to the customer. And that brings the brand loyalty, I would say. And exactly what even Manish was saying. Yeah.
Right. Understood. Okay, so my next question is around, again, centered towards growth. And a lot of young tech startups are coming in, which are solving specific problems, not just for industry. But there are startups in data, there are startups in specific to machine learning, there are startups which are just building chatbots, right? Now, a lot of us talk about, Dhruv was also talking about ecosystem partnerships in his fireside chat, right? So how do you think about it, and how do you execute it for your clients or for your businesses to further move ahead in your domain? So, Rakesh, you would want to start?
Okay, so in partnerships, of course, our esteemed guest here, he's our partner, one of the partner for sure. So we have to take data, we have to take information from various providers. So we do take from TB, of course. That's one part of it. How do we actually ensure that it's more and more visibility there for the traveler to be able to book, for my TC, for my employee to be able to book for the customer? That's one side of it. But if I take it actually much higher, 50,000 feet higher, we started a setup like an incubation setup. We are dealing with a company called Plug and Play. They are a company which actually invests in startups every year, 200 odd companies. They bring those companies to us, basis our questions which we are looking to solve. We see many issues which are going through in the business which we are looking to solve. We talk to them. They bring those solutions through that startups. Either we partner with them, we build with them, or we buy them. So build versus buy, that's the decision we took. Or sometimes we buy and then build on that. So we've been able to invest in some companies like TP Connects, which were for NDC. That was one of the way. We bought a company called Shep sometime back, which we call it as extension, by which we can actually send notification to our travelers, what is happening, where is happening, all those things. Or for the matter, that when it is time for you to do check-ins and all. So all those things come through partnerships, all those things are working on all. Or I would say as simple as working in a partnership with an expense setup, which is the key word right now in the business world, B2B side of it. Yeah.
Anshul, what's your perspective about it?
I'll give one example. It's multi-company partnership. The partnerships are so important. The example I'm going to cite is, I have some colleagues from Amadeus sitting here, and we're talking about corporate travel as well. So Accenture has a deep partnership with Amadeus. Now, Accenture also has a partnership with Microsoft. We have a joint venture called Avanade. And then Microsoft has investment in OpenAI. So if you bring all of these, Microsoft, Accenture, Avanade, OpenAI and Amadeus, these 5 companies together, is something that we are working on now to redefine how corporate travel agents are actually delivering service to the corporate travel buyers, designing the trips, redesigning what packages have to be delivered, what level of entitlements are there, all of that using GenAI in a completely automated fashion for the Amadeus Citric corporate travel product to reimagine the experience that the corporate travel buyers, not buyers, but the employees of the buyers are going to experience. So it's a 5-entity partnership, and just, for one subject, and there are so many others going on.
Ankush, in B2B specifically, at least what I have seen from my experience over the last 5 years, people are very cautious about such partnerships. What is your sense and what has your experience been? I'm sure that over these many years you would have partnered and you would have had all kind of experiences with your partners, right?
You're the big example. You're in B2B, we work together, right? We're now competing for the same business. Has TBO ever shied away from not powering you? I think that answers the question very simple. But the matter of fact is, as I always say, the market is huge. Cross-sell, upsell, nobody can win everything, especially on the supply side. So if you're a master of the bus, for example, I'd rather integrate with him. Demand is the easiest to carry. The challenge is the supply. And I think in the world, whether it's corporate, leisure, cars, cruises, etc., if somebody is a champion of something, I have no ego integrating with them both sides, right? I think that's where, and that's what I say, if the content is stronger, the loyalty might be higher. And nobody gives a damn whether I bought it from X, Y, Z. The reality is the inventory should be correct, the pricing should be good, and the trust factor, I think, plus obviously the tech, which has to make it extremely simplified when you're issuing the hotel, voucher, cruise, whatever it is. So you should be answering this question, Chirag, more than me.
So I have another angle to it. Any of you can answer actually. Ankush, what you talked about was more of supply side partnerships, right? But there are also a lot of tech-based partnerships which are solution-driven and not just demand and supply. So what is your experience? It's open to all actually, if any of you have something to say.
So I think for me, it's build, buy, and speed to market. Something what we can't do, and obviously it's something we need to win, and a young company which has come is creating that asset. Absolutely, we will look at them in terms of acquisition or seed funding, whatever it might be, or build ourselves. But I think speed to the market is extremely important. So that's something which is a cautious call, which we would take internally. And yes, there are great assets coming up, young guys building some kick-ass technology, and I think that's the next 10 years, when I think we'll be in my 60s, so that's what it is.
Okay. All right. Rakesh, I have one more question for you, which is more around data centricity, right? So at FCM and again as a business leader, so how do you treat data within the system? Because a lot of people talk about it, but I see that people are capturing the data but not always leveraging it as much. So what is your perspective on it?
So I'll go back to your first question, Chirag, when you spoke about how do we build your goals, and through goals we look at the OKRs, what are their key result areas, etc. And in those things, how do you measure them? Itself is data, first of all. So that's, I would say, one. When I say that I want to be known as a brand for the customer, so I need to understand what my customer listens from me and what is they are expecting from me. What is that they think about me? So all that is data. So, and in that setup, whatever technology is being brought up, we have to see how is that usage going to be sending the data back to us for us to be able to see the usability versus the actual features. Features may be many, but are they being used or not? So all those things. Then it could be as simple as the issues which are being presented by the technology tool. Are we able to case manage them? We understand where the challenge is. How do we solve them then? and then we go deep down the basic numbers and all. So data is actually of course, everywhere there, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Can I add a little bit? So I would want to add an example to that. And before I do that, so data is one of the 4 key technology trends that we define coming up in the next 5 years, or rather evolving in the next 5 years. In 2005, there was a company that actually created a small window of transparency. So before 2005, if you had to search for a restaurant to go and eat, search for the feedback and all that, it was always word of mouth by the friends and family. Yelp was founded in 2005. And it changed the game for the restaurants to get the feedback, to promote their products, for you to find what it is today. Zomato's and Swiggy's and all that also have similar kind of a thing. In the world of travel, there's a company called Cirium, which is now aggregating all the aviation data. It was all scattered all over the place. No one single-handedly had it. They are collating data from 880 plus airlines and they now are able to tell which aircraft has been used how many times and what parts are about to be worn out basis the standard definition, but that data exists, and that window of transparency that is being created by this data is immense. The cliche is not for no real reasons. Data is the new oil, and that is what really is happening, and companies are building strong businesses on it.
Got it. So we are down to our last 20 seconds, but I have one question. And again, it's relevant from growth perspective. A lot of us talk about venture capital and funding, both informal and formal type of funding, to grow the business. Even I come across a lot of people in travel trade who come and ask that, okay, does the business require funding? So what is your perspective, as in how has your personal experience been? And to anyone who is thinking of raising funds for growing their business, what's your 2 cents to them? It's for both the entrepreneurs sitting over here.
So you're moving Manish first? Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Travel always has been one of a travel, and now slowly travel, mobility, and then now slowly it's a sustainable mobility. All of these things are always, the investors and all are always looking across to good ideas across to invest around. I think, in my personal opinion, the biggest challenge which the travel industry and industry we are across is to how to make money. And that's for, if how to make money and how to make that money so that it kind of gives a good return to the investors and shareholders is where the biggest challenge for the startups, especially in the travel space, would be. So if anybody has that and they can demonstrate it over a period of time that there is money to be made, there is a shareholder value over there which can be made, I think it would be an easier thing.
Yes, Ankush.
So I have played this game thrice now. Okay. I think the fundamental, most important thing is governance. I think a lot of founders, in the early days don't realize corporate governance plays extremely role when it comes to investor. I think that's the first question one should make sure is done properly. Second is profitability. As Manish rightly said, scale is important, size is important. They really want you to excel and get the market share, whatever, very quickly. But I think not on a compromise of not making losses. I think that's where the investors have changed, the VCs have changed. And if you're churning cash, they will respect you more. Plus, I think a lot of founders in the early days dilute a lot to raise capital. And by the time the series C, D, E, F till Z, they are landed up with 5%, 6% of equity. Now that's where the problem starts. Because then you're too, you're there running the business, but the fact is you're not a meaningful shareholder in the company, to control the board. Voting rights, affirmative voting rights, all that jazz. And I think tech, if you're not a tech, you will never get the funding, because I think that's something which is the value. It's the first thing which any investor will ask you. And I think investors today are just not, I think my suggestion would be somebody not just putting money. If he's being an active investor with you, helping you to grow, guiding you in terms of compliances, some growth opportunities outside India, within India, I think he should be literally like your partner, but not obstructive. I think that's something which is very, very important. And autonomy is extremely important, for the founder or the founders.
Makes sense. Okay, so I think we are well past our time, and I've got most of the questions which I had. I think if there's any question from the audience, there's probably a 5-minute slot for it. We can take it up. Yeah.
Yeah, hi everyone, my name is Varun, and I've been working in the travel industry from almost 2 decades now. I look quite young, but I have given my 2 decades to this industry. So my question is to the panel, all the senior people over here. So as you all know that after COVID and during COVID, lot of people have changed their jobs. And nowadays, we are a youth-oriented country. So travel, we know that there is no rocket science. There is no rocket science, but still people who left the companies and changed their jobs. After changing the jobs, now in the market there are no skilled that if you go on the online portals like Naukri.com, and there are LinkedIn or some or all social media platforms which recruit the talents. So they're hiring the travel consultants, but they're not finding the right people. So what is your take on it, that how you are taking it forward so that you will get the right people in future, and so that more and more people will join the industry as a mediator, because we all are selling a product, and but we do not have any product. We are people oriented people. Ultimately we are selling services only.
Thank you, Varun. So I'll take it on. Firstly, you're right. It's not rocket science unless it is rocket science. So for sure, travel is not rocket science. I agree with you. In the industry, we need to develop an interest for people to be able to get into that. If the youth are not interested in the industry, of course, we'll have issues. How, as industry partners or industry leaders, how are we generating that is one of the aspects. So we need to go and talk to various forums, various institutions, maybe generate an institution for that. And that's what at least we at FCM are looking at it. You cannot get a ready-made product. You need to build it. So I would say that is something which is needed. We have already decided that we'll look into that aspect for sure.
Yeah. So slight disagreement from my colleague. It's not rocket science, let me put it at that. There's a lot of things which needs to be figured out and which still needs to be figured out across, and especially 1.4 billion people across traveling in India and creating their mechanisms. There's a lot of innovation already required. So it's not, I'm saying it is an interesting phase. See, I think in my personal opinion, COVID was a once in a lifetime event across us in that way. Thankfully, it is all back behind us, and especially for the travel industry. And it will take us 1 or 2 years to kind of recover from that and bring that talent, and hopefully we won't see any other COVID in life, that people have to go across and search for other jobs doing that. So let's just hope across this was just once in a lifetime event.
Just wanted to add one more thing over here. As we all know that we have a population of more than 140 crores in India, and half of them are into their 20s to 30s and 40s. So technology is not cheap, we all know. And in last few years, if you have seen that the people who were working in a tech companies, they have demanded like the people who were working in a travel industry, from let's say who is a vice president or a manager, from given almost 2 decades or 15 years or 10 years to the industry, the tech people who have just entered into the market, they have hired like more than 20 lakh per annum. So you also see that over here we have more of manpower over here. So manpower is cheap, technology is expensive. What is your take on this?
So I think actually we need to pause it, but I think it's evolution, right? If you don't build your skills pretty quickly, you naturally go obsolete, and industry stops rewarding. It happened with many companies and in many industries, right? Kodak films are not there. Nokia has lost the ground. So it's about evolution. If you don't pick up the skills, and I know that there are enough experienced people also in our companies, in our other travel trade partners companies, who are doing fairly well and in important roles. So that's my perspective. You need to keep on upskilling yourself. It doesn't stop with experience, right?
I would be happy to have a discussion with you on this side. Thank you.
I think great question. Very tough to answer, by the way, but there are many answers to your questions, and some will be unanswered as well. But if I sit here for half an hour, it will take us more to answer this. But I think you have a very valid, brilliant question. Thanks, Varun.